Tornado of Terror Tatsumaki vs Monster Form Garou. This has been suggested many times in the comments, and quite frankly, it would have been great to see how Tatsumaki would fare against Garou at his last stage before he got amped by God. In this video, we'll make sure to break down their best scaling feats and see who would come out on top. And as usual, make sure to redirect your click to damage the subscribe button and hit the notification bell for more of these One Punch Man videos. Thank you. Tatsumaki is the number 2 S-class hero, considered to be the hero's greatest weapon and arguably could be the strongest aside from Blast. According to the Databook, her abilities are said to be the fruit of a divine realm that surpasses human knowledge, capable of moving all sorts of creation. One of her first serious showings is stopping the countless shells fired by Boros' spaceship, same attack that destroyed City A in an instant with ease. Now, Tatsumaki's greatest feats comes from her fight against Psychos. Not only did she one-shot Garou, who is already a dragon level monster, but did the same thing to Psychos even when she got amped. But the greatest flex Tatsumaki had was being called a monster by Psycho Orochi despite being a monster herself, implied that Tatsumaki during the whole fight was not at full power due to holding and protecting her comrades. And even when being weakened, she was shown being capable of tanking Psycho Orochi's beam. This resulted into splitting a continent in an instant. Now, this is a testament of Tatsumaki's defenses, using multiple barriers to protect herself from attacks that are of a large-scale caliber. Although in my opinion, being fully concentrated is a needed requirement for her barriers to be strong and fully effective, since after she got pierced by Psycho's swords while having an enveloping barrier around her body. Same type of barrier she used to tank a way stronger attack, meaning the strength of a barrier is changeable and it depends on how much psychokinetic energy she imbues in them. However, as soon as Tatsumaki is fully concentrated on Psychos, the shift of the battle changed drastically, twisted the entirety of City Z to get rid of Psycho Orochi with all of her implanted roots. This is a no surprise, since according to Murata himself, Tatsumaki at full power can legit lift the entirety of City Z if she ever wanted to. However, even a monster like Tatsumaki has a limit that could be reached, but still was shown being pushing even beyond, creating a barrier that can cover up most City Z. This is one of Tatsumaki's various abilities. Girl can raise the gravity levels, restrain and block her opponent's movements, blocks and redirects strong blasts, and the list goes on. She also stated in her fight against Saitama that she could throw people out to space, and the only two characters she could spar with is Cape Baldy and Blast. Now, when it comes to speed, even when heavily injured, she was still fairly dodging and avoiding energy blasts from Homeless Emperor, and later in the story shown reacting to Sonic, who could have a considerable buff since he felt lighter after eating the cooked monster cells, alongside with her feat saving the citizens before Saitama got to them first. Tatsumaki is without a doubt a top tier character, and it's quite frankly insane that we still didn't see her full power in her best shape. Monster Form Garou is the highest and the strongest level he has attained without the help of God, became considerably strong that no one was left to face him aside from Saitama. At first stages, he managed to absolutely demolish the likes of Vomited Fury Ugly, Platinum S, Flashy Flash, and Sage Centipede. Some of them are powerhouses that can be placed in the above Dragon Threat level category. He possesses high level of strength, speed, explosive powers, technique, and battle IQ, and can also copy techniques, adapts, and can evolve and get considerably stronger during the fight. Garou is shown to be remarkably fast. His speed before blitzing Platinum S was calculated to be 4 times the speed of light. He evolves after and attains 2 additional forms against Saitama. Speaking of that fight, Garou managed to get hit multiple times by Saitama and did not die. Granted, we know that Saitama was trying not to kill him and was heavily holding back, but Garou's close range combat proved to be effective since Saitama's attacks were maneuvered and could not hit him. Not only did he survive multiple attacks including consecutive normal punches, but was capable of tossing Saitama around using his God Slayer ascending attacks. Garou also holds an attack called Great Fajin. Fajin is a term used in Chinese martial arts, and what this does generally is focusing a force resulting in physical feats with a far less visual physical expression, such as the 1-inch punch. And that's why even when Garou wasn't punching or kicking, putting his hands together like that generated that much force. The purpose of this punch was to bypass Saitama's durability, so that the shockwave of that attack would pass through him, rupturing his organs from the inside. The same attack got magnified due to Garou gaining another form called Gargoyle Garou. The shockwave of that attack traveled through Earth, causing a spatial distortion that created a hole in the dimensional seal. This was such a serious feat that required Blast and his companions to get involved to repair it, and it's unknown what would have happened if this seal was broken. Now, the pre-retcon version showed the Earth being bulged, and according to one of the companions, this feat cannot be done by Earthlings. However, this has been changed in the retcon version for unknown reasons. Garou can also regenerate on a much faster rate, that with his insane level of durability that allowed him to tank most of Saitama's punches. Granted, we know that Saitama was not trying to kill him. Also, it's still unknown what he can do with the 11 types of martial arts he has in his arsenal. All of these can be highly effective, depends on which opponent he faces. And after all of this, he obviously gets defeated by Saitama to be granted a new power from God, rendering him to become Cosmic Fear Garou. Now, it's truly unknown how strong both Tatsumaki and monster form Garou are. The former couldn't go all out from the get-go, and the latter fought Saitama, and we don't know the degree of how much Saitama was holding back. However, based on the feats, we can safely assume that Garou, even before evolving, held the advantage when it comes to speed. Although I think it's pretty faulty to assume that Tatsumaki is not fast. We simply don't have enough feats to support the argument of her being capable of operating at Garou's speed. Even after defeating and surpassing Platinum S, he kept evolving at such a fast rate, gaining 2 more forms afterwards. I'll go ahead and say that this fight is very tricky. In order for Garou to win, he would need to deal with her psychokinetic powers and abilities, or otherwise she can simply twist him up and throw him back and forth till he no longer can fight. In chapter 94, Garou used her psychic powers to restrain and paralyze Garou, and surprisingly, just a moment after, Garou managed to adapt to it easily. She couldn't believe how fast he managed to do that. However, you can simply say that Tatsumaki is no Garou. She's obviously more proficient with it and can use it to its full extent. Same argument goes for Garou, in which at this stage he was far weaker than his monster form state. However, the argument of Garou being able to adapt to it can also be supported by the summer festival with Tatsumaki audiobook. As we've seen, she couldn't control Saitama with her psychic powers, and this is supposedly Saitama before removing his limiter, meaning a character of that level who also has the ability to adapt can perform the same feats. Now, I would go ahead and say that even if she can restrain him, which I strongly doubt, he would be too fast for her to even catch or react to. But the big problem for Garou is that he would have to figure out a mean to damage her, as for her barriers could legit withstand a continental attack. Alright, based on her fight against Psycho Orochi, there are 4 ways to damage Tatsumaki. 1. The attack needs to be strong enough to destroy her barriers. 2. Tatsumaki needs to be out of focus, using her energy for something else like an attack that would leave her defensively vulnerable. And 3. She needs to be exhausted enough, not having enough energy to protect herself. And last but not least, attack in a speed in which Tatsumaki still didn't activate her barriers. In other words, needs to be a blitz. Now, Garou could use one of his strongest attacks called Great Fajin, and as I explained before, the shockwave of that attack bypasses durability. That's one way of ignoring the barrier's durability and damage Tatsumaki from the inside. The only reason it did not work on Saitama is because, you know, it's Saitama. Extreme Fajin could be even more efficient, since the shockwaves even almost resulted in breaking a hole in a dimensional seal, and Garou can absolutely land that attack due to the speed difference. Now in chapter 90, Galewind and Hellfire Flame claimed they could deal with psychic powers by killing the user before activating it. That's obviously not gonna work against a character of Tatsumaki's caliber. However, it was never implied that Tatsumaki's enveloping barrier works all the time without turning it off. On the other hand, we've seen an instant of which her barrier was not on and got attacked by Psycho Orochi, so it's safe to assume Garou, especially in his gargoyle form, would be fast enough to attack her as soon as her barriers are off. That's only when assuming her enveloping barrier is as strong as we think it is, since she could have used her sphere barrier off panel to defend against Psycho Orochi's beams, as evidence of her being attacked when the previous panel showed her having the barrier on. So to sum it up, if Tatsumaki can't control Garou using her psychic powers, she has absolutely no way of defeating him. She can throw as much objects as she wants and he'd be just too fast and evade all of them. She can raise the gravity levels to stop his movements, but that's also assuming she could react to him at first place. Even if she damages him, he can regenerate and adapts to her just right after. Best case scenario for Tatsumaki is that her barriers would always be activated and the fight would have no clear verdict. That's assuming Garou attacks wouldn't damage her. And her second best scenario is King showing up and getting rid of that father god level threat they call Garou with throwing him into a giant black hole. Speaking of King, he's featured in the previous video. If you didn't watch it, please make sure to do so. Until next time, take care. Peace.